Today, I ask for my colleagues' support for my amendment to cut $10 million from this appropriations bill and contribute those funds instead towards deficit reduction. This particular $10 million is set aside to increase diversity in biomedical research. The federal government has an addiction to growth and expansion. Find a problem, just create a new program and assign a few bureaucrats to handle it, and that will somehow, allegedly, fix the problem. Under this administration, you don't have to set aside special monies to support diversity. President Biden has made it very clear through nearly every executive action that he takes that every agency should look at every issue through a diversity lens. The Biden administration makes everything about race anyway. We should not believe they need a few more million in taxpayer dollars just to make a difference in this aspect. At some point, the Biden administration needs to stop dividing everyone based on the way they look and instead focus on actual health solutions for all Americans in need. Americans are tired of everything being about race. When it comes to the future of biomedical research, we want to know that the best of the best are researching ways to cure cancer, fight heart disease, and help us lead longer and healthier lives. None of those are racial problems. They are human problems. And throughout our history, American innovation has been at the top of the charts for finding breakthrough cures and therapeutics. This year, through this bill, we are already set to invest in that research, and we can spare the $10 million that focuses on diversity and instead spend it on something that helps every American, contributing to the spending reduction account that would actually decrease our deficit. So I hope my colleagues will join me in this simple cost-saving amendment, and I yield.
Gentleman reserves. Any member claim time in opposition?
Yes, I claim time in opposition, Mr. Chair.
The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
I rise in opposition to this amendment. Let me just tell you a brief story. I arrived at the Congress in 1990. At the time, this is on a bipartisan basis, what we discovered was, this had to do with women's health, what we discovered at the National Institutes of Health was that all of the clinical trials on illnesses, diseases in the country, all of the research, all the science in all of these diseases, the clinical trials had only included men. Only men. I don't think anyone would view that this is rocket science, that women are physiologically different than men. So on a bipartisan basis, the women, Nancy Johnson, Barbara Kennelly, Nancy Pelosi, Nita Lowey, Marge Rauckheimer, banded together. And they said, this is crazy. Women and minorities need to be included in your clinical studies so that we can not just extrapolate data from clinical trials from men and apply it to women, but women deserved, minorities deserved to be in those trials so that we could find out what was the best treatment, what was the best cure, what was the best way to treat their health issues. Now, this is an amendment that would cut $10 million to the National Institute of General Medical Sciences at the NIH. One of the basic missions of NIGMS is to support a next generation of scientists. This amendment would reduce support for scientific trainees across every stage of their career trajectories, from supporting undergraduates, community college students in research experiences, to PhD and clinician scientist training, to postdoctoral training, and the transition to a first scientific position. By eliminating an office of diversity in biomedical research takes us backward when we moved forward all those years ago to talk about how biomedical research and that discovery to cure had to include in the scientific endeavor, yes, men, but also women and minorities. This amendment would limit newly early-stage investigators who are a pipeline to a next generation of researchers for future scientific discoveries. With all deference and respect for my colleague, this amendment is short-sighted and it's counterproductive. And I urge my colleagues to oppose the amendment, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields back. Gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've made progress today. I'm glad to hear the gentlelady from the other side of the aisle recognize there are differences between men and women. We may next actually be able to define what a woman is or what a man is. So I'm glad to recognize or to hear that recognition from my friends on the other side of the aisle. You know, if President Biden were serious about helping people, he'd cut our spending. He would renew American energy. He would secure the southern border. In fact, there's millions of illegals pouring across our border, costing taxpayers $150 billion a year. And while every issue is not a racial issue, as the administration would have you think, every issue is not a climate issue, as the administration would have you think, but today, every issue is a border issue and every issue is a spending issue. And yet President Biden focuses on woke initiatives like the Justice 40 initiative that promotes equity across the federal government. Certainly today, we would not criticize biomedical research. Matter of fact, we recognize the value that it brings to our country, and I'm thankful for those in the field who are doing their best to help all Americans. We want the research done by the best researchers for all Americans, regardless of what any of them look like. And I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is